And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it. And that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. Tonight I'm joined by my guest, Paul. Paul, thanks for coming on here and talking with me.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself before we get into it?
Yeah, my name's Paul. I go by Paranormal Paul. I have Paranormal Among Us that I do 2 live shows a week, Tuesday night and Wednesday night live. It lives on YouTube forever, I guess. And then I'm also on like Spreaker and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else you get your podcasts and stuff. But I've been doing this show for right about 3 years actually.
Mm-hmm.
I just had my 3-year anniversary and stuff. So it's been a blast. I've had a ton of guests on that are just fantastic and met a bunch of people, done a bunch of things, and I'm just having a blast doing it. I love hearing stories. I love not coming up, but doing investigations and having my own encounters and stuff. And it's just opened my eyes to a whole new world that before this, I never really thought existed. So I love this.
What made you interested in all of this to want to start a podcast? Did you have experiences that kind of led you into the whole paranormal realm, or?
The funny thing is that a lot of people who do this have experiences from when they were a kid or whatever, growing up. I've never had an experience that I know of before I started doing this podcast. I've always liked watching the TV shows, the Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, all that stuff. But one day I'd been doing podcasting for a long time, doing sports and general interest and all kinds of stuff, and nothing really stuck. And I just had in January of 2023, I had knee replacement surgery, and I was laying there doing my exercises, and something hit me like I should start a paranormal podcast. And I got this book from that somebody wrote about Mothman, and I'm reading it, and his contact information is in the back of the book and everything. So I emailed the guy and said, hey, this is really interesting to me. I've kind of been following this for a little bit now, and I'm thinking about starting a podcast. And I remember he said, why are you thinking about it? Why don't you just do it? So I'm like, all right. 2 months later, I had started Paranormal Among Us, and it's gone ever since. And I'm having a blast doing it, like I said.
It gets to the point for me to where it's a lot, and I've had to back off from. I was doing multiple interviews a week and releasing 2 episodes a week, and for me, trying to maintain that, keep up with guests, and then I started doing another side show, and then I started doing live. Like, it was just way too much. And I work a full-time job, and we're just talking like a family and everything. It gets way too much, and I got a little burnout on it. So I've backed off a little bit. I'm only doing about releasing 1 episode a week, but I'm still doing more than 1 interview a week. So it's really not much different on that end. I'm still doing
I
the
hear
grind.
you on that one. I work in retail and at a meat shop actually, and we do a lot of catering. So October, November, and December, we're just crazy busy at work. And maybe those 3 months I have like 4 days off.
Mm-hmm.
So usually every January, I'm completely drained. Like the 26th of December, I'm done. Nobody talk to me, nobody do anything. I don't want to do anything. And usually in January, I'm like, do I really want to keep doing this? And for some reason, this January, it was really strong, me not wanting to do this anymore. And I'm like, I don't have it in me anymore. I don't, it's not that I didn't like doing it. I love doing it, but it's just, it wasn't as, I don't want to say as rewarding, but I lost it for a little bit there. And I took
I get
maybe
it.
took a week off. And then something happened that I'm like, okay, I missed this. I need to be with my people. I need to be talking to guests and stuff. And like, I've been, I added a second show, and then I'm doing another morning show. So I'm doing 3 shows a week, and I and working. I only have one kid, and he's 19, so he's not really needing us too much. So it's I still have a little bit of family time and stuff. So I'm making time for everything, so things are going good now.
I think it's good to take a break every now and then.
Yeah.
I took a couple weeks off just to relax. Not that
Mhm.
that's actually anything I'm able to actually do, but it's just one thing less to deal with when I've got
Right,
this show going on and everything else. But
right. And we don't get vacation time doing this stuff. I
mm-mm.
mean, and stuff. So we don't get paid really for this either. So I mean, taking a week or two here, that's not going to hurt anything really. But and I can we can bank recorded shows and air those on the weeks that we're not available. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that too. So
Something was strange, and for the listener out there that they won't really care, but my numbers today, I release on Tuesdays. So for anyone listening, obviously this will be out on Tuesday. And I know what I normally get, but my numbers today are like double the normal amount that I usually do on a release day.
really,
And I can't really figure out why. And I'm looking at my statistics, and there's just everything looks fine. So I'm just kind of confused as to why I'm not going to complain.
yeah, and okay. I mean, that's really bizarre. I mean, I've noticed an uptick in my numbers the last month or so too.
Well,
Um, I don't know if it's just more people are finding it, or if they're more interested in the topics or the guests or whatever. So
yeah, it's
I
just
don't know.
odd that like this is a lot more than a normal one. It's like almost as much most I've ever had in one day. So something seems off about it, which is
Wow.
funny because I've turned all of my monetization off. So I was like, of course, when this is actually doing really well, there's no commercials or anything, so I'm not actually generating any sort of revenue
Hmm,
for it. But
that's weird.
yeah, I don't know.
That's bizarre.
That's the biggest thing I get from people hating on the podcast is the fact there's commercials, and I'm like, I don't disagree because I understand that
Hmm.
podcasts didn't used to have that. Well, neither did Netflix, neither did none of this other stuff. Like everything went digital to get away from commercials, and now it's just
Right.
how it's became.
Commercials will find you,
Yes.
and especially with like Netflix and all that stuff, if they need to make money, and that's where they get it.
Yeah.
It I was doing, had commercials in my shows for a while, and I have 2 monitors here, one that has StreamYard, the other one that has YouTube, what's going out, and I get annoyed when ads popped up on mine. So I took all that stuff off.
Yeah.
So, you know,
That's the way of the world though. And
yeah.
I offer a Patreon where they can have everything ad free and it's less than $2. And after YouTube or not YouTube, but after Patreon and Apple take their cuts because for some reason Apple takes a big cut of that all of a sudden,
Really.
I basically don't get anything. But it's at
Mhm.
least there. I feel better about it. I'm giving people the opportunity to not have to hear commercials.
Yeah, exactly. So,
The deal that I'm on and I signed up with, like, I have no choice. Like, the commercials have to be there. That's the whole reason I'm on this network is because that's how they make their money off of me. And I don't have to pay for hosting and everything else because they generate money off my show.
right. You know, yeah. It is what it is.
Yep. Well, what are some of the things that you've talked with people about or anything that you've experienced yourself that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, one of for some reason, when I have incredible luck when I'm going on investigations that, my first ghost hunt, I had something happen to me. First time at a different location, I got scratched. Um, Even when I wasn't even trying, I found footprints, Bigfoot footprints and stuff. But the first investigation I ever did was at a place called Ashmore Estates in Ashmore, Illinois. Used to be a poor farm over there, and we were walking around all night. It was my first investigation, and then some other gal. It was her first investigation too. So for some reason, they just let us both, wander around this place by ourselves. So we were in this basement in like a boiler room, and I'm filming stuff with I don't know if I was using my cell phone or a video camera, and I had the dead bell going and stuff, and it was ringing, and we're asking the questions. Do you like us being down here and everything like that? And she never went. There's like 3 or 4 little steps to go down into the boiler room. She stayed up on the top steps because I didn't want to piss anybody off. So I was asking a bunch of questions in there, and I'm walking up the steps, and I'm like, okay, thank you for letting me be in here, or whatever. And I didn't hear anything at the time, and this just kind of proves that you after these investigations, if you do video, if you do audio, you have to spend the time to carefully go back on every single minute, second of your footage that you record or whatever. So I'm listening to this, and as I'm walking up the steps, I hear somebody whisper, "We're watching." And that completely freaked me out when I first heard that. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? The first time I'm on an investigation, I get an EVP on the camera with that." And I'm just amazed. And I showed it to a bunch of people, and you know, no one could explain where it would have come from. And it certainly wasn't air conditioner coming on, because it was syllables and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just incredible. So that was at Ashmore. Nothing really else happened there. I got my name mentioned in an Estes method, saying that I was pretty boring. So that was pretty nice of the spirits to tell me that. But then there's another place out here in near Kansas City, Missouri, in a place called Richmond, Missouri, called Ray County Museum, and I go there quite often. And the building is shaped in like a Y, and there's 56 some odd rooms in this place, and they all have like different themes. So one's like the Civil War room, one is the World War II, World War One room, Desert Storm, and it's got all kind. People donated stuff to the museum, to each of these rooms. So it's chock full of all kinds of memorabilia from different wars and different eras and stuff. So we were in. There was 3 of us that night in the Civil War room, and supposedly there's a spirit of a guy who likes to open and close little cabinet doors. Excuse me. So of course, on our walkthrough, I opened one of the doors, and later that night, I was going to go in there with a spirit box and try and communicate with them and try and have them close it. So all day the door stayed open, and then at night we're in there. There's 3 of us, one on my about 6 feet away on my left, on my right, and then same on the left. And I was standing in front of like a display case where it's a glass display case on top, but then it's open on the bottom. It just has the legs. And we're talking, and we're getting some interaction on the spirit box. We're asking, "Can you close these doors?" And we keep getting no. And this goes on a couple times, and I keep saying, I'd really like for you to close that door, and if you do, then we'll leave. So I ask one more time, nothing happens. We get no. And then the guy on my right is looking at me, and he sees underneath the cabinet that there's a white mist going under there. And he said, "Oh wow, there's a white mist going under there." And I look over there on my left, and I don't see it. But then on my right side, I feel a cool breeze pass me by. And then I look down, and I have 5 scratch marks going up my leg. I didn't feel it at the time. I just looked down and happened to see it. Like, wow. So I said, somebody in here scratched me. I'm getting out. I apologize for, wanting you to do something and not listening to you, but, I will respect this because it wasn't anything demonic. It didn't burn. It wasn't the 3 scratches going up your leg. I took that as a sign that, hey, we're in charge here. This is our room. When we say no, get out, we want you to get out. So like, okay, so I got out. So, but that was that. And nothing really much else happened that night. But that was 2 of my really the weirdest thing. Actually, 2 of the 3 weirdest things that have happened to me in investigation so far.
How long have you been doing investigations for?
About 3 years. Well, actually, about 2.5 years or so. I started, shortly into my second year of doing the show, and but I haven't really gone on too many. Maybe like 3 or 4 a year,
Hmm.
but enough to know, that what I'm doing, and I'm with really experienced people, so I'm not with a bunch of amateurs going through here, and I'm with people who know what they're doing, and they're helping me out a lot, so that's cool too.
I have not been out on too many other than the ones that I've done myself,
Hmm.
and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Hmm.
But we've had some interesting things happen, and I am very much a skeptic when it comes to a lot of this type of stuff. I've
Hmm.
obviously had things I can't explain happen, but I've always tried to keep a skeptic type of an opinion.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of a better way to go about it because sometimes years ago I went out with a group and everything to them was paranormal, paranormal. I was like,
Yeah.
you have to rule it out
Hmm.
before you can call it paranormal. Just because
Hmm.
your meter twitched doesn't mean it's paranormal. Now, if you're starting to ask questions and it's responding and doing what you're asking it to do to your meter, then that's a little different.
Right.
But just because it lights up once or twice randomly doesn't mean it's paranormal.
Right.
It's not
Exactly.
it's not showing intelligence. Just because you might think you heard a word on a box or something doesn't necessarily mean.
And a lot of times with those spirit boxes, they scan, FM frequencies just like
Mhm.
this thing.
Yeah.
So you're getting radio stations too through this. So it's really kind of hard unless you don't have one that tracks the radio stations. I know there's some out there that are at a different frequency than radio stations are at. It's kind of hard to pick through what you hear.
Mhm.
And that's another thing that the average Joe, you don't know what to expect, whether or not to believe what they're saying or what they're hearing or whatever. But I put myself in with a bunch of people who I know, who I trust, who have done this a lot, and I know if and they debunk or try and debunk everything as best they can as well. But a lot of times that you try and debunk it and you can't. So is it paranormal? It could be. Could it be something else? It might be too. So, stuff like that. But I also like doing as much as I can to try and debunk something. And still, we don't know 100% that it's paranormal or whatever. So, um, yeah.
I think some of the best ways to go about things, and again, I'm I'm not an expert, I don't know anything, but a lot of people say that if there is something intelligent and they kind of understand like what you're doing, they understand the intent that you're putting out there, what you're looking for.
Hmm.
I try and go out with a clear head. I don't
Hmm.
go out there thinking I'm going to catch something. I don't go out there thinking I'm doing this or doing that. Like I just go out there just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
some people like to antagonize, some people like to do this. That's not what I just walk, I listen, I might ask a question.
Hmm. And that's another thing. People go into these locations. You're going into somebody's house.
Right.
you're not this isn't, public property. I mean, you're going into a place where this person may have lived at one point. So just like you would be going, like I would be going into your house, I'm not going to go in there just, being a complete jerk and everything. You won't get any interaction that way. If you go in and hey, thank you for letting me come in here. I really appreciate that. I'm not coming in here to I'm just coming in here to communicate with you, to learn from you, to hear if you have anything to say. I don't mean any harm by anything. I'm not going to hurt you in any kind of way or whatever, to be disrespectful. I think that way you get a lot more uh, evidence or interaction that way, where your intent is pure and not just, I just want you to talk to me. I want to get evidence, and I want to make $1 million or whatever on this and be the next YouTube sensation.
There's a couple things that I do that I don't know if anyone else is doing, and I'm not going to say that for the listeners to go out there and attempt to do what I have in mind, but I go out and I'm not just looking for paranormal. I'm looking for anything just odd. So if it's cryptid to UFO stuff, like anything that's
Mhm.
could be possibly out there. Cause I don't go to the houses really. I'm out in the woods. I'm out in these locations that have like supposed like satanic rituals. There's like, you
Mhm.
don't know what's you could encounter.
Right.
And I go out with my thermal, I go out with my night vision and the phones that we record with, and we just record, we just see what happens. And I'm starting to do this. I've got a couple places around here that I've got labeled out. One of which I don't want to say on air right now because I know it's going to be controversial, but there's something in the area that is very, the situation is a terrible situation, but it's very close because the people that I'm involved with were also kind of almost a 7 degrees from Kevin Bacon saying like
Okay.
somehow like we knew some of the people involved in it one way or the other.
Right.
So we're going to do something and I don't know how the local people will react to it, but I think it'll be interesting. And that is, some of the things I've got on the horizon. I want to start doing investigations because I made this documentary, but that was all just kind of spread out. But now I'm going to spend an entire like a YouTube video in one location, pick up everything that we have, show the stuff, and I just want to start doing stuff like that just to kind of get out there and not just be
Mhm.
stuck behind here talking to people about the experiences. I want to be able to present stuff to people too.
Right. That's kind of the direction that I'm wanting to go to. I haven't been out in the woods yet. Well, once I have, but that is definitely something that I want to get out and do, and it's fascinating, and just to talk to people with their hearing their stories, that's fun. I enjoy hearing other people's tales and stories and stuff and encounters and stuff. But like you, I wanna go out in the woods and see what I can get, and whether I present it on YouTube or whatever. We record just about everything that we do nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Little pieces of something will end up on YouTube. But yeah, I agree with you on that one, that I want to start doing that more too. So.
I think it'll give something more for the audience to know that I'm not just a guy behind a microphone anymore.
Mhm.
Like I want to get out there. I want to try and show that there are something out. Like again, I come in this as a skeptic that had experiences, but I say I'm a skeptic, but to be 100% honest, I'm more on the believer side of weird stuff because there's just too many things that have happened to people and myself that I can say that there's some weird shit going on. Like that's
Yeah.
the only way of going
Yeah.
about it.
I don't think you can do shows like ours and be completely skeptical. I
Mm,
mean, yeah, there's, from my point of view, all the stories that I've heard, whether it's Bigfoot, UFO, Dogman encounters, the Rake, ghosts, anything really, you know, I know these people that I talk to, and most of them I really trust and believe, and I know they don't lie. So was it some weird looking crawling creature that was walking after them? I believe that's what they saw. Um, I have no idea what it is, and from the sounds of it, I don't want to encounter anything like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, doing this, I was a skeptic about, all things in the woods and everything, and didn't really know much about all that stuff until getting into this, and then hearing the stories that I am like, oh my God, there's crazy things out there, and where are they going? What are they doing there? Are they in this realm? Are they in some other dimension or whatever? So, that's something that I don't think we'll ever find the answer to until, one day, but it certainly is interesting trying to find these things.
I think a lot of stuff is somehow connected one way or the other. And I'm not saying that everything, the term around here over the last few years is everything's become demons. Like people
Mhm.
say aliens are demons. People think these Bigfoot creatures are Nephilim, which are offshoots of demonic spirits and bodies from giant. Like I don't necessarily agree with all of that because I think there's more to it than just that. But I still think that somehow a lot of it does have a similarity. And I think if you've had an experience with one, you're most likely able to have an experience with something else because I think once you're able to see these things or interact with these things, it opens you up.
Mhm.
And I've talked to someone before and I don't remember exactly how they phrased it, but I kind of started saying, like, maybe it's because you've noticed them, now they're noticing you because you're almost like that beacon to where you're drawing them in because they sense that you can sense them. So now they're interested in you because you are able to actually interact with
Mhm.
them.
Right. I think that whatever's out in the woods knows a hell of a lot more about us than we know about them. And I think people tend to throw that demonic word around too much. They could be a nasty spirit, nasty Bigfoot, nasty cryptid, nasty UFO, whatever. But just like humans, there's good people, there's bad people. That doesn't necessarily mean they're demonic. And I think if a Bigfoot was, or anything in the woods that is demonic, if they're throwing rocks or throwing stuff at you, they're not hitting you. They're coming close. I think that's a warning. And in my mind, I don't think a demon entity would give you a warning. They
Mm-mm.
would one strike and you're out type thing. I mean, they would throw a rock and hit you. And I think these things are way stronger than we think. And I think that if they want to hit you, want to eliminate you or whatever, there's no question that they would do it. I don't think all are like that. I think there's some maybe, but I don't think all are like that.
I just get hung up on the fact that we've never had physical evidence of a body.
Hmm.
You would have to have a breeding population. You would have to have something at this point to keep these creatures, if they are like a flesh and blood type of a creature that breeds and eats and everything
Yeah.
that a normal animal does, there should be some sort of proof of that. We should have encountered something. And I've talked to people before, like, well, how many times have you been out in the woods and you've ever seen a bear carcass or a mountain lion carcass? Well, yeah, I get that, but we also know they exist because you
Right.
still see them while they're alive. These things we don't know because there's never been a body. And then you hear the stories of people having these giants under mounds or whatever, and the giant skeletons at the, and this is the conspiracy aspect to, like, they're hiding it from us. But what's the point of hiding it?
Right.
I've never understood the whole concept of why they would hide that. Like, we know there's gorillas, we know there's other sorts of primates, we know there's other sorts of humanoids throughout, if you believe in the evolution theories or whatever.
Hmm.
There's been stuff like that. So why all of a sudden now are we saying these things that don't exist? Because there's tribes in other countries that have never had any sort of modernization that they don't want to mess with. So if that's something that they know is running around the woods, is they're just an offshoot of some sort of a human from a different evolutionary line, what's the big secret about it?
Hmm. And if you look back through history, even back all the way back to the caveman era and stuff, you see these uh, sketches on the wall on these rocks and stuff, and something like this has been going on for many, 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 many years, long before
Hmm.
mankind was around, I think. But why haven't we found a body? That's one of the biggest questions that I've always been asking as well. That where are they? Where are they at? Where do they hide? Where do they bury their dead? Um, why haven't we seen this? Are they that elusive, or are they able to go interdimensional and stuff? Maybe they are spiritual and not flesh and blood, or maybe there's some kind of hybrid of both, and they can travel different dimensions. I mean,
I
who
interviewed
knows?
someone a couple years ago, and I bring it up a lot because it's one of the things that I actually think makes a lot more sense for me personally. And if people agree with it, cool. If they don't, that's whatever. But he said that Bigfoot is more like a forest poltergeist because if you take Bigfoot activity and put it in your house, you would say your house is haunted by a poltergeist. You hear the knocks, you have things being
Mhm.
thrown and everything else. You might see something peeking around or whatever. But you move that now out into the woods, and now you're saying it's a Bigfoot. So he said it's almost
Interesting.
like Bigfoot is the forest poltergeist because all the same activity that you would have in your house, you have in the woods, and we're relating it to Bigfoot. But if it was in your house, we'd say it was a poltergeist.
That is very interesting. I never thought of it like that, or never heard that.
Yeah. So I interviewed this guy. He wrote a book about it, and ever since he said that, it's made me think. I was like, you know what? He's right.
Yeah,
Like if you look at the activity that people have had, for the most part, it does kind of sound like what people would consider their house being haunted by a poltergeist.
yeah. And you're not going to go around saying, well, I guess some people would say that the woods are haunted, but yeah, that's bizarre.
Hmm. Yeah. So
I
that
like that actually.
yeah, that's changed my perspective. So anytime I talk to someone and that this topic gets brought up, I was like, I tend to go back to that because I was like, I think he's actually onto something because that actually makes a lot of sense to me, at least for myself. Like it makes sense.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, no one's really ever explained that to me before like that, but wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got me on that one. I got nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
It's
makes
one of
sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense
yeah.
now.
Because when you think about it, like when someone hears a knock in their house, you might hear a knock
Mhm,
out in the woods.
mhm.
You might have something in your house that gets moved or thrown. People say Bigfoot throws rocks or sticks at them or something. Like all the
Yeah,
stuff, it does kind of line up to similar things. So does that mean Bigfoot is a ghost? I'm not saying it is a ghost, but I've heard someone claim that maybe these Bigfoots actually are ghosts, which would explain how come they can manifest and disappear. And I was like, I mean, then you're getting back into that
yeah,
whole spiritual aspect. And
yeah,
then some of the Native Americans talked before about how these things were not necessarily like people, but they were like a spirit type of a person.
yeah.
So I don't
And
know.
if they are a spiritual being, then how are we getting these gigantic footprints
Hmm.
um, in the dirt? And how are we getting these tree structures? I mean, if it is them that's bending these trees like this and sticking the top end of the tree so deep into the ground, how are we getting that? I mean, you you ask one question and then so many more questions come from
Right.
that too. I mean, what you said made perfect sense, but then again, it brought up all kinds of other questions
Right.
about that too. I mean,
There's no right or wrong answer because at the end of the
no,
day, no one really knows because it's one of those things that we can't explain. And I think,
right, and unfortunately, the day we do know these answers, we're going to be long gone, and we're not going to be able to communicate to everybody what these answers are.
I think it's
So,
interesting that we're in the age of disclosure right now. Everyone's talking about
mhm,
UFO disclosures and everything, but how come they're not questioning stuff that's more of a paranormal aspect? Like
right, right.
they want to know about UFOs, but how come they haven't asked the questions about, well, why haven't we talked about more of a spiritual thing? How come we haven't mentioned anything like cryptids or whatever? Because again, I still think a lot of it is somehow similar.
Yeah, a lot of the stories that you hear, whether it's hear the UFO first or the Bigfoot first or cryptid first, we should say, they're always together. You see the orb, and then you see the creature, or you see the UFO, and then you see the creature, or vice versa and stuff. Somehow, some way, these things are. I don't know if they're transporting each other or what? I mean, there's I'm like you. There is some weird connection that ties all this stuff together somehow.
I,
Um,
I've spoken with someone before, and I need to have him back on the show to talk a little bit more about some things, but he talks about energy, like plasma energy. So let's just say an orb is like a ball of energy, and we're saying it is a spacecraft, but maybe it's just a thing of energy. What if whatever this thing is, and this is me relating this to the old video game aspect, but if you ever played Halo or any of those games where you used to be able to make, like in the Forge, you can make your own little map and stuff. You could just go around your map and look at things. Well, sometimes on the map, if someone else was in there, they would see your thing floating around as you were building, but you were just a little ball. You were like the little energy ball floating around. I was like, I wonder if maybe some of these things that people are seeing, these orbs or these energy things, like transporting through our world. And this is kind of sounding like, not to say that we're in a simulation or a video game, but maybe that's how they travel around into our area. So when we see the orb and then you see the Bigfoot, maybe that's the shape it takes to manifest itself into our 3D reality. So,
I mean, that that makes sense to me. I mean, that would explain why we haven't seen a body. Why all of a sudden you see 2 or 3 footprints and then all of a sudden there's nothing.
mhm.
Um, I mean, who who really knows? I
Yeah.
mean, nobody's an expert in this. Um, I mean, people say they are, but
They're
I don't
not.
see how anybody can be an expert in this.
Anyone
Um,
that says they're an expert in this, I've always say it to avoid, because they might be an expert in their research of what they believe,
mhm,
but without having any sort of actual physical proof or bodies or anything, no one can sit there and say they know
right,
100% of what they're talking
right.
about, because again, it's just their opinion.
Those people are probably expert researchers. They know how to research what they're doing as far as researching. But yeah, I agree. There's unless somebody, I don't know, lives with these creatures or whatever, there's no way there. Or if these creatures come to us and somehow explain everything, there's not going to be any expert on this.
I've interviewed some biologists lately, and it's funny because that was the episode that came out last week. So as the time we're recording this, this was obviously last week's episode, but he kind of keeps himself under wraps of who he actually is, because obviously he teaches and everything else. So he doesn't want to tarnish his opinions, but science doesn't always look into some of this stuff.
Right.
And he looks more on a different basis than, because he's a microbiologist. But if you think of things that way and other thing, he sees the possibilities of how some of this stuff looks and can be real to an extent. And for some reason, mainstream science does not want to acknowledge or look into this type of phenomena. And it's kind of strange to me, because what happened to science wanting to know? It's almost like
Mhm.
now that they act like they're all about debunking rather
Yeah.
than that opinion of wanting to find out information. Now science is like the main shut
Right.
down excuse of everything.
Right. I mean, you almost have to, go away from the scientific aspect of this and just, get the field researchers who aren't necessarily scientists to lead these things, and whatever they come up with is what it's going to be, because, like you said, scientists aren't going to give us the answers that we want.
Yeah, it's almost as if that for some reason, and I'm not saying they've been bought off, but whoever they work for or whoever funds them or anything, they don't want to rock that boat. They don't want to be the one that brings up the questions that might get them in trouble and lose their funding.
And then that goes back to the money thing that we were talking about earlier, that these scientists are being led by the money aspect of it, and they're doing what the money, whoever's paying them, whatever they're telling them to do. And maybe they are telling them, hey, here's money for your research. You're going to find this is going to be your answer. Figure out how you're going to get there. And could that be how some of these UFO scientists are going missing?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they uncovered things that they weren't supposed to, that their employers didn't want them to find out about or research. I mean, I certainly do believe that. And you mentioned we're in the world or the era of disclosure. They can the government can say whatever they want. They can tell us whatever they want. I'm not going to believe a word of whatever they say.
Right.
Yeah. Why? I mean, they tell us what we want to hear, not necessarily what's true. So, I mean,
Anything that's came out from their quote unquote disclosure is stuff that people like you and I have already known about for years
yeah,
because it's been in the circles and we've all been considered conspiracy theorists for all these years talking
yeah,
about some of the
exactly.
stuff, but now they're just confirming the conspiracies to these people.
Yeah,
So just the same thing, like look at all these other conspiracies that have happened and they've been proven to be true all of a sudden. I've not gotten my apology for being called a conspiracy theorist. It's like it's not it's no longer a conspiracy if it's been proven as a fact.
right. Yeah,
But
your apology is in the mail. I
yeah,
don't think. I think it's going to get lost in the mail.
yeah. That's honestly one of the things like why I do my show. And this actually just happened a little bit ago. Someone was criticizing my show over the name because they don't think I take the show and the topic seriously because I use the word tinfoil. So to them,
Mhm.
it's insulting. I was like, you have to understand the context of what the name even represents because it's not about making fun. I was like, literally, it's talking about the things that mainstream does not want to talk about.
Mhm.
It's not making fun of the experiencer. It's owning that word because the average person is going to tell you that you're a crazy person. You must wear a tinfoil hat.
Right. Exactly. I was talking to somebody. I was actually on the radio here in St. Louis today, and I brought up Bigfoot. Um, and the hosts were like, "You come on, you don't believe in that stuff, do you? It's just a funny guy in a costume. That's no, you don't. That's not real. That's not real." And you know what? I mean, that's what I love about your show, my show, and other shows like it. That we don't judge. We take people's stories and we listen to it. Whether we believe it or not, we're not going to belittle these people um, to their faces or anything. I mean, I wouldn't do that to anybody really.
Right.
So it's a place for them to feel safe and be able to tell their story and maybe even have some kind of therapy with it. Find people who have had these encounters too that might have been traumatic with them, and a place for them to express their sadness, frustration, whatever, and you just let it out and be themselves and not be ridiculed for believing this stuff.
I think a lot of the people that ridicule anyone most likely are afraid to admit that something like this could be real. They don't want to acknowledge that. Now, I get why some people say Bigfoot's not real because we just talked about it. There's been no bodies or anything.
Hmm.
But I would love for someone to come out and tell me that they've never had any sort of experience happen to them. I think almost
Hmm.
every single person has had something strange happen, whether they want to admit to it or not, or even acknowledge it or not. I believe someone has always had something weird happen.
Hmm.
How many people have deja vu? How
Yep.
many people have had that feeling like they've been being looked at and they happen to look across the room and seen someone was looking at them because they turned their head away from them real quick?
Hmm.
Like, how many people have walked into a room and felt like a different type of feeling when they go into that room?
Yeah. Almost get sad or
Mhm.
angry or whatever the second they cross the
Like,
threshold into a room, and then when they leave, everything is completely
yeah.
fine.
What happens?
People,
Like,
that's not natural.
you've heard a random noise that you can't
Hmm.
explain. Like, I'm not saying
Hmm.
that obviously it's paranormal, but you can't explain it. So again, people
Right.
have had experiences they can't really explain. I think everyone's had that.
Hmm.
I'm not saying it's all paranormal related, but for someone to completely write off the whole idea to me is stupid. That's you can't just go off and say that these things are impossible.
Right. Right. And that's just extremely close-minded, and people just need to open up their mind to any possibility of things in this world. I mean, um, like you said, crazy knocks, weird I don't know, if somebody has a dream and then it comes true, it happens that very next day or whenever.
Mhm.
That's not your subconscious, um, at play. It's something is coming to you in that dream, and something is gonna happen. Or, even the feeling that you get when, I should be going to this place right now, but you know what? I'm gonna wait 5 more minutes and do something else real quick. And then you're on the way there, and there's an accident that just happened.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that something telling you not to go? To keep Is that your guardian angel or whatever keeping you safe from this accident? I've talked to a few people that have had that happen.
It's almost like
Um,
that little premonition.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's uh, there's a lot of weird stuff in this world, and like you said, it's not all paranormal, but a lot of it could be.
I think people just need to be a little bit more open-minded, and
100%.
not to dog on anyone that's religious, but a lot of the people that are religious are also against stuff like this, and I've thought that's even more interesting in the sense that if they believe in the spirits of whatever religion, how can they not believe in other type of spirits?
Hmm. Yeah, I had something happen a couple weekends ago to my uncle who actually passed away that day. And I was telling an extremely religious person this story, and I'm like, you know what, this person is kind of closed-minded and stuff, and probably the type of person that doesn't believe in this kind of activity. But um I mean, I completely think that it was something paranormal that happened in that hospital room that one time, and she just wouldn't believe it, wouldn't open her mind to it. So,
Yeah. There's
yeah.
been a few things that have happened to me that I wish I could explain away, but it
Mhm.
just doesn't. Like, there's no logical explanation for some of the things, and that is why I do what I do, because how many other people have had that happen and they don't wanna talk about it?
Exactly. That's why these shows are so important, that, people use these as therapy. I mean, I know a guy that had a very traumatic Bigfoot encounter where his either girlfriend, I think it was his girlfriend at the time, ended up dying from whatever happened. And he was lost for so many years after that, that he started doing his podcast, and he's found so many like-minded people like that, that it's helped him tremendously. And I think there's a lot more people than like that too,
Mhm.
that have these crazy things happen to them, and they don't know what it is. And they find these shows, and we have guests on, or even us talking about these encounters, and oh wow, it's happened to this person too. Then, well, maybe I'm not crazy, you know.
I think for a lot of people, it's one of those things to where it's easier to relate and they hear
Hmm.
someone else has experienced it. And that
Right.
make it's a comforting aspect to some people because it's like, well, I'm not the only one.
Hmm. Yeah.
That
100%.
that's like I said, that's one of the reasons I do the show because I know what it's like not to talk about certain things. And I wanted to make something for people to be able to come on and talk about the things that they're afraid to talk about because again, you bring this type of stuff up, you're going to get labeled as a crazy person or whatever else. So
Yeah.
this is your safe place to come and talk about
Yeah. I, I was this morning when I was talking about that on the radio. I After I hung up, I was listening to it for a little while after that. All the comments were coming in. Just imagine this guy, walking through, what kind of a guy walks through the forest looking for fairies and stuff like that, and just all kinds of really weird negative comments. I'm like, okay, that's why I do my show and you do your show here, where people can come and tell their stories and not be afraid to open up and give their encounter and not be ridiculed and stuff. And I mean, what happened to some people, could have been their imagination. Um, I highly doubt it was, but this is where they come for release, and this is what we provide them.
I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that everyone that's ever been on the show has never fabricated something, but at the same time, what is the point of doing that?
Exactly.
Like someone says, "Oh, they just want attention." I was like, but most of the people I talk to don't even want to have their information out there for anyone to know who they are in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So what attention are they getting? Just telling me a story that they've made up in their mind? Like, okay, wow.
Mm-hmm. And for a while, I was hearing stories of people being abducted, UFO abductees and stuff, and they talk about seeing their being lifted through the ceiling and stuff, and looking down and seeing their body laying on the
Mhm.
bed and stuff as they're going up and stuff. And the first time I heard a story like that, I'm like, I didn't say anything obviously to the person, but I'm like, really? In my mind, I'm like, really? This is just nuts. I don't think that's real. But then I heard it, 2, 3, 4, 5 more times. I'm like, okay, 5 people wouldn't be making this up like that. So, maybe there is something to that. So,
A lot of people nowadays say when they're abducted, it's not so much that some take their physical forms, but a lot of them have talked to me about they take their consciousness from their
mhm,
body. And when you
yeah,
talk to people that have studied transversing the astral plane through meditation, the
mhm,
that's their consciousness leaving their body and traveling to these different dimensions.
mhm,
So what if what we are considering aliens that are coming and abducting people are really just these beings from these other planes of existence that are taking the consciousness of a human
mhm,
to this different plane of existence that we say we're being abducted by aliens? And I've brought this up for several times now too, because you mentioned fairies, and it reminds me that hundreds of years ago in Europe, when people were getting abducted, they said they were being abducted by fairies.
mhm,
Nowadays, we say people are being abducted by aliens. If you go through history, the abductions have all been similar. People lose time. They have been brought back with clothes on backwards, or something's missing. They got weird marks on them. It goes throughout history. Today, we're saying they're extraterrestrials. Hundreds of years ago, they were saying they were fairies. And I don't know what else could be in the future, what we're going to say. But as we keep evolving and adapting, whatever this thing is that's doing this has also been evolving and adapting. So for the time, they continue to move in advance what we are. So we say they're aliens now. They used to be fairies. Maybe hundreds of years before that, they were demons. Like
mhm,
everyone has a name for them, but what if they're all the same thing?
yeah. And yeah, and where are these people going? I mean,
Right.
Um, I remember when I was growing up, just laying on the grass, looking up into the stars and thinking, this was way before I even thought about doing stuff like this. Like, there's got to be some kind of intelligent life out there that we can't be the only thing that's out there. And I 100% believe that there is definitely something out there um, taking us, like you said, maybe they are taking us subconsciously, not necessarily our physical form. But then you hear people go away for so long, and they just can't. Maybe that's where a lot of this missing 411. Maybe some of them are being abducted, and we don't know.
If you
But
if you line up some missing people, like the missing persons maps along
mhm,
these parks, and you line up
big
big
systems.
the Bigfoot sightings, and you line up the UFO sightings or whatever, they all kind of do line up. But the other thing that I've noticed is they also line up with where there's cave systems.
Yep, yep. Missouri, Kentucky, there's a ton of caves in the area here. So, and maybe that's where these creatures are burying their deceased in cave systems. Maybe that's why we haven't seen anything. Maybe, there's caves that we just can't get to that that they can.
Someone the other day, and I don't believe this was on an interview, it was just someone I was talking to, told me the reason we're not, well, this was in person. I was at a Bigfoot thing like last week, and I was in the Kentucky Red River Gorge Bigfoot Festival. I was
Oh,
talking
okay.
to someone in person. He said, "What do you think these things are actually from? Where these extraterrestrials, these UAP, like, where does all this stuff come from? I was like, well, a lot of people think they're interdimensional or whatever. And he shook his head. He said, everyone keeps looking up or using that word. He's like, we should be looking down. He said, if you look at that stuff, he's like, they're from within the planet. And then he went on about Antarctica and how there was a thing up there. And we
Oceans.
talk about the cave systems, how some of these things are in cave systems. I don't know. But
You know, you hear so many stories of, you know, when the Tic Tac videos were coming out, you know, these things coming in and out of the oceans. That certainly makes sense to me that, you know, our oceans are so vast and we have hardly scratched the surface on exploring the depths of the ocean and stuff. And you know, we can't really on some of the depths in the oceans. But, you know, what a perfect place for these beings, or I don't want to say people, but these beings to, you know, hide and, you know, maybe create a base or something. I've heard stories. I have a friend of mine who lives up in Alaska who's a pilot, and he has a few stories of things coming out of a volcano that he just can't explain. So, I mean, and you see other things coming out of the ground and stuff, and you know, maybe there is some sort of cave system that we're not familiar with or whatever that we haven't explored yet, or in the ocean. What a great place to hide in these big lakes, up in Lake Michigan up there, in the oceans. There's several deep lakes here in Missouri that supposedly have things coming in and out of it. But I think there's definitely looking down is a big thing that, you know, we just maybe we haven't explored that area yet,
I th-
and we need to.
I think a lot of people are so fixated on looking at the stars. And again, we don't look close to home. Maybe these things have been here for a lot longer than us. And
Yeah.
maybe they were, well, just say the earth is 4 billion years old.
Mhm.
What happens to the civilizations that could have been here a billion years ago or 2 billions? You know what I mean? Like maybe they evolved, everything got wiped out, but maybe they left, they came back, maybe they went underground. We
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Like we're only
And
going by the science that we know from the last billion years of evolution, but they
Mhm.
claim Earth's 4 billion years old. That's a
Mhm.
long time for different things to, like, if you look at humanity, we've advanced in the last, what, 10,000 years roughly
Mhm.
to how we are today. Just think if things had millions of years prior of
Right.
evolution. Who's to
Right.
say what they were capable of doing and where they went and what they did?
Right. And you know, one theory that was introduced to me not too long ago was maybe some of these UFOs or UAPs or whatever you want to call them that are coming into our world, maybe they're us from the future.
Yeah.
Maybe they're us coming back to check on the planet to maybe warn us about, you know, things that we're doing wrong, these nuclear sites and stuff, or nuclear war or whatever, that they're trying to warn us not to do this, or you know, not to get involved with things like this. So um, you know, that kind of caught my eye, that, you know, what if hundreds of years in the future we're coming back to the change
Mm-hmm.
the history here? Who knows?
Yeah. There's a lot of things we could keep going on and on about because there's just so much stuff that it just makes your mind wander.
Yeah.
But
And you know, like we said, you know, you answer one question or you ask one question and 10 more pop up, and you know, you're just going in all kinds of different directions, and you know, I don't think we're ever going to get answers. I mean, even if agencies, three-letter agencies come up with answers trying to give us information, I don't think many people are going to believe them.
I'm at the
So,
point now to where I don't trust anything mainstream
no.
comes out with because it's kind of been one of those things where you can't believe it. There's
Mhm.
been so much information out there that seems to get manipulated, and it depends on who owns it anymore,
Mhm.
what side they align with, and who they're affiliated with. So, mainstream media is not anything that I take seriously, and the official government is definitely not something that I take seriously anymore.
Nope.
So
I stopped doing that long before we
Right.
we're doing podcasts and stuff.
Right.
So
I said
it's
I've
just too negative and too much. I just don't care about.
I've been I don't want to say people use the word woke, and I don't think they use it correctly, because I said I've been woke about a lot of things for 20 something years at this rate. Like, this is not the woke that people use today. Like, I've not trusted a whole lot of the information that's been going around since the early 2000s.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've been going on for about an hour. I usually try and wrap these up around that
Holy
time.
cow.
Yeah. So before we do, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
How much longer do we have? 'Cause I have a story that I'd like to share.
I am good for as long as you want to go for.
So I have a friend of mine, Brian Bowden, who does remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
And we had kind of an encounter last year, I believe it was. And I never really knew much about remote viewing and his abilities and stuff. And I think deep down, I think we all have kind of that ability. It's just, some people perfect it and use it more than others do. But a group of us were doing an investigation at a place called Arcadia Academy down in Arcadia, Missouri. And we were on somebody else's late night Saturday show, and we were doing a live investigation and stuff. And I was filming somebody who was wearing a God's helmet. And if you guys aren't familiar with what the God's helmet is, it kind of looks like a transformer type helmet with a bunch of lights going around the top, the crown of your head, and everything. And it's supposedly going to put you in a relaxed state to be able to see things better. So I'm filming this gal who's wearing the helmet, and we were at an old Civil War hospital. And the location we were at, she was sitting on a couch with her back to a brick wall. To her left, my right was like a little stairway going down 2 steps or something into a little room and stuff. And she said while she had the helmet on, she kept seeing a guy coming out and kind of watching her. And keep in mind, these are Civil War era people that are spirits that, were running around this place, that they hadn't seen technology like this before. And then behind me, she would see nurses running back and forth. It used to be a hospital, so that made sense. And then a couple of them were kind of just standing behind me watching my camera, what I was doing. So nothing really happened. It's just, a bunch of people watching us and everything. So she ended her session with the God helmet, and the host said, Paul, why don't you put it on and try it? So I'm like, I've been kind of wanting to do it, but I really didn't want to try it. I was kind of leery about it. And at the time, I really hadn't seen much of anything. So, but I said, okay, I'll do it. So Brian was in chat for a while for that show, and then he came on the show to be on screen, and he was getting all kinds of information from the location that we were at. And now keep in mind, he's down in Florida while he's watching this. He has never been to this location before. I don't know if at that time he'd been to Missouri much. So before I put the God's helmet on, he's telling me, okay, you need to go out of this building that you're in, turn left, go down a sidewalk, and then turn left to go down a driveway. You're going to see a door that has a white awning above it. Go in that door, and then once you get in there, make a right. You're going to go into a big room. I'm like, okay. I knew at the time he was good at what he did. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I went out. Sure enough, he was spot on accurate with everything that he was telling me to go. So I get in this room, and there's a maybe 8-10 foot long table there. And on the right and left side of in the corner of the room was 2, say, 7-foot tall doors with the fire escape glass above each door. So it was probably about 8-9 feet tall. So I'm sitting at one head of the table. There was 2 actual people in there recording me, what I was doing. And right before I put the God's helmet on, Brian said, Paul, take a deep breath, something very exciting, very interesting is going to happen to you. I'm like, okay. At this point, he knew everything that was going on, where we should go and stuff. So I'm like, I'm trusting this guy. So I'm like, okay. So I took a deep breath, blew it out, put the helmet on. At the time when I first had it on, I'm just seeing like, like white snow and everything. So almost immediately I felt a presence in front of me, but it didn't feel, negative or anything. It just felt like something was happy in front of me. And I couldn't see anything. I just had that feeling that something was there.
Mhm.
And then I'm hearing Brian say, kind of describe this person. And he kept saying, it's an older gentleman. His hair was slicked back, gray hair, facial hair, just really, really happy, just beaming, happy for you. Turned out he described my grandfather to a T. So I believe that was my grandfather sitting at the other end of the table. I'm like, okay, I just got a cold breeze. Um, that was weird. So I feel it was my grandfather there because I could feel kind of a family vibe.
Right.
So then shortly after that, just less than a minute after that, I felt something on my shoulder. And keep in mind, there's two women to my right on the table. They hadn't gotten up and moved. So I said, Brian, I think I just felt somebody behind me touch my shoulder. Says, yeah, that is another gentleman back there who, again, is beaming with pride and smiling like crazy at you. And he described my dad to a T. So my dad was back there. My grandfather was on the other side of the table. And then he said that he sensed that there was all kinds of other family members standing kind of in the shadows of this room, that they were keeping all the negative energy and all the whatever out of the room. So I 100% believe that my grandfather was there, my dad was there, and they were all protecting me from whatever was in this location that night. And it was just an incredible feeling. And you know how you just get this overwhelming sense of joy out of thin air.
Right. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was feeling at that moment. And it was just an incredible encounter with the God's helmet. And I took it off, and I broke down. I mean, I hadn't seen my grandfather since I was 2. My dad's at that time had been gone for 7, 8 years and stuff. So it was just an incredible emotional encounter that I absolutely loved. And like I said, I knew 100% that whatever was in that room was them, and whatever they were keeping things out for me. So that was cool. Very cool.
I am kind of confused by the God helmet. I've seen people have these things on. Is that the thing that kind of blacks everything else out around you?
Not really, because you can still see.
Okay.
It just kind of relaxes you and puts you in a more of a meditative state. But like I said, I could still kind of make out that there was two people over here, but a lot of what I was seeing was like the white noise that you see on TV and everything. So it wasn't entirely clear, and it's different for other people. I mean, I've had people wear the God's helmet and they're being shown fields and other weird things and stuff and stuff like that. But I guess it's different from everybody, and not everybody's going to have a positive experience with it. So it's certainly not something that you want to do it for a long period of time, because it'll mess with your mind and everything. So you want to do it around like 15 minutes at a time. So, but it's pretty cool. I would if people have access to it. A friend of ours who was on the investigation had one, and she was letting us all use it. I would highly recommend doing it, but just like we said in the beginning, keep an open mind to all this stuff.
I think for anyone out there listening, my biggest thing for the listener is to, like you said, keep an open mind, but you need to be able to understand that not everyone is just making up stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just because someone experienced something that you never experienced doesn't mean that person's wrong.
Right.
And that's where it becomes hard for the average person that's never had an experience that they are aware of because they can't relate to it.
Right.
And I think it takes someone that's had some sort of an experience to actually be able to relate to somebody else. And that's how the conversations can start, and they're more comfortable with people because they're not feeling like they're being isolated out, like they're the only person.
Right. And who are we to say that, whoever saw what they saw, we weren't there.
Exactly. That's what I say. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I'm not going to say this person's wrong because I don't know what they experienced because I wasn't there to see it myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That's where the open mind comes in.
Yep.
That, you have to keep an open mind, and the character of the people that you talk to, and you just know. I think.
well, before we wrap this up, I would like for you to let everyone know where they can find your podcast at, and again, whenever you're doing your live streams and everything.
So I do Paranormal Among Us on YouTube on Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central. Wednesday nights I'm on at 8:30 p.m. Central. We go for 90 minutes. Tuesday night I'm on with my co-host Natalie Smearman, who is more like a annoying little sister to me. We bicker back and forth all the time, but we have a blast doing it. Wednesday nights I'm on with my buddy Krista, who I met back in December of 23, and she has been with me every step of the way. She's got a channel called Blondes and Booze. She's helped me, tremendously doing this and everything. So I owe a lot to her. And she's and it's weird that you meet all these awesome people through doing this, and they become lifelong friends for what seems like a lifetime, but it's only been 2 years that I've known her.
Right.
And it's just incredible the relationships that we build doing these things, whether it's on through StreamYard, through the internet or whatever, or very rarely do we see each other in person, so that's pretty cool. Where was I going with this? Oh, so those are the two shows, Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights. I get distracted easily. And then I also do a fun show on Friday mornings called The Morning Mix with a young lady named Jamie Kelly. We're doing our first show this Friday on a new channel, The Morning Mix. But it's just a very fun, loose, happy show. It's not paranormal. It's not political. It's not religious or anything. It's just two people talking fun, having laughs, and just kind of getting you ready for the weekend. And hope everybody comes in there and has some fun too. So
awesome. You have a link tree. I will put that in the show notes for anyone listening that can
appreciate that.
Find your information. They can find your shows. But again, thanks for Paul for coming out here tonight, Paranormal Paul. And
you're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast. I love it. I love this stuff.
Yeah. So for the listeners out there, make sure to check out Paranormal Among Us and Paul's other shows. And again, I just want to say thanks for him being on here and thanks for listening. But we are going to wrap this up. So we'll check you on the next one. If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tells, remember to send an email to tinfoiltellspodcast@gmail.com, or you can also go to tinfoiltells.com and go to the contact section. Just make sure to reach out and get a hold of me, and we will get something scheduled for a future episode. You can also find Tinfoil Tells on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for Tinfoil Tells Podcast. You can reach out to me that way too. Remember to share the show around. Word of mouth is the best way to help the show grow. And just remember, truth comes at cost. Are you willing to pay the price?